My name is Average Joe, and I'm a proud geek with expertise in movies, superheroes, and animation.
My name is Beef Pork Ribs. I'm a fine repository of esoteric knowledge, which I suppose most people would qualify as geeky. Though I dabble in many fandoms, my main areas of expertise are anime, movies, and Belgian comics, with a strong recent insurgency of D&D.
Our mission is to bring nerd and geek culture to the masses
by sticking it all under the microscope.
Welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast.
Movies, comics, graphic novels, TV, cartoons, animation, nerds are geeks, entertainment culture. Hear it on the Bat Jar, Nerdy Power. Nerds and geeks, come gather around the scene. Come and join us in the Bat Jar. Come and tune into Average Joe and his team. Lots of room here in the Bat Jar. When the newest nerdy news drops, these podcast pals put it under the scope. DC, Marvel, Disney, Star Wars, cinematic, multiverse. It's mega Christmas, strangest franchise. Hear it on the Bat Jar, Nerdy Power.
Hello there, and welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast, where we put nerd and geek culture under the microscope.
And we do it again and again, just so that you guys get a full picture of everything we think about everything. Because why else would you listen to this podcast?
That's right. And talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Disney Plus show last week, you know, I feel like we spent so much time getting into the background information, into like what led into the show, and then talking about kind of like some of the, I guess, the filmmaking elements, like the style and the music, that we never really talked about what happens story-wise in the show. So this is going to be
happen?
Yeah, so this is going to be basically a full Spoilerverse episode, meaning if you have not watched Obi-Wan Kenobi, like, we're going to spend most of our episode inside the Spoilerverse, where it's full-on spoiler territory for Obi-Wan Kenobi.
And we're going to nitpick the heck out of it. I don't know. We might end up not doing as much nitpicking, but I feel like that's a probable happenstance.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen Obi-Wan yet, go back and watch last week's episode, and then watch the show, and then come back to this episode, because we're now inside the Spoilerverse. Going off
don't
of
matter. You know, like, where everything is. What was it?
Spoilers are free for everything, but generally we try to, like, you know, just stick on the topic of the day in case we spoil something else for somebody.
Oh, so I could spoil like Endgame in this episode because we're in the Spoilerverse? Is what you're saying?
You could. If you can find a way to connect Obi-Wan to Endgame, I'd be impressed.
Well, they're both made by Disney. I'm sure I could if I tried.
Now, last week we talked about how the show was, 6 episodes long, and how someone had edited it down to like a 2.5 hour movie. I think if it had just been the first 2 episodes and then the last episode, that would have been all I needed.
The first 2
and the last. So the first one, it's like, it shows you him on Tatooine and that there's Inquisitors there, and it kind of ends with him going off to rescue Leia. And then the second episode is like he's on like the criminal
underworld.
You've
cut the second half of the rescue completely and everything with the path.
Yes, basically. I don't know. The whole idea of the path, and there's this like pre-rebel group that helps Jedi. I'm just like, I don't know. That didn't seem.
Call it the way, because otherwise we'd have all the Ugandan knuckle memes.
Right. I don't know. Was that interesting to you?
No, you're right. I see what you mean by that. Yeah, it was kind of just nothing.
Because again, I haven't read any of the Obi-Wan stuff that from like Legends that takes place, like, is set during this period. So I kind of just thought he spent the entire 19 years kind of just hanging out in Tatooine. So
I have read some of them, and that's still what I thought was happening. So maybe I'm wrong, or maybe it's just.
Yeah. The reason why I say the first 2 episodes, because the second episode establishes his connection to Leia, and it kind of like shows him kind of coming out of his funk, and then him discovering that Darth Vader and Anakin are the same person, which I think that's probably the first time. Actually, the first time I mentioned the thing with the Grand Inquisitor last week about how like they try to suggest that he's being killed off. That was the first time I was like, okay, that doesn't seem right canonically. But the second time was when Ray was like, oh yes, Anakin's alive and he's Darth Vader. And I was thinking to myself, there's literally a line in Revenge of the Sith where Yoda says to Obi-Wan that Anakin has been consumed by Darth Vader.
Yeah, it was. There were so many strange choices. Well, not strange choices, just straight out continuity errors, and because we should definitely call them out for what they are.
Yeah, which is surprising considering we know that the show was entirely rewritten. You would think that they would have had more people kind of like fact checking. Because
Yeah, I don't think they were fact checking. I think they were, like we talked about last week, just rewriting because they thought they needed to rewrite to be less Mandalorian, I guess was the thing, right?
yeah, but I saw one of the writers in an article like try to explain. It's like, oh, like, you know, Obi-Wan didn't know that Darth Vader survived because he's been on Tatooine all this time and information doesn't get out there. And I'm like, I feel like Darth Vader is a pretty significant figure. I feel like even on Tatooine in the Outer Rim, he would have heard about Darth Vader doing stuff.
Yeah,
Especially if he's aware of the Inquisitors, because they work for Darth Vader.
yeah, that was a little bit strange that they kind of very specifically set it up so that yeah, again, it's inconsistent, right? I think that was the biggest thing, is that the level of information he has is inconsistent, because at some point he's got all the information he needs, and at others he doesn't. He's missing, you know, key information like who Darth Vader is, which, yeah, seems ridiculous. And like, I don't know, there's a few other things that I could see where they were trying to make it seem less ridiculous, or like preemptively fix plot holes, or I guess patch up plot holes, because we already know what's going to happen. But like, a lot of it just seemed like they were throwaway lines and not something somebody had actually thought about, because if they'd thought about it, then they'd understand that some of the implications of what they're saying is just ridiculous.
Like, okay, Prince, like a kid Leia is in this show. What did you think? Did you enjoy the fact that they found a way to incorporate her into this?
Ish. So I think that the young actress who played young Leia was doing a very good job.
She got a lot of like people were like not liking her performance.
Really?
Yeah, like people complaining that it's like, oh, like she's behaving more like an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old than a 10-year-old.
That's where you're going to nitpick on this? I don't know. She's
Like
also
she comes across as very obnoxious, which is very Leia, very Anakin. Like it's
Yeah, no, I don't know. I thought that she worked well. It was just weird that they made that choice.
the choice to include her or to the choice to portray her that way.
The choice to include her at all.
I thought it was
Like,
kind of nice because, you know, Star Wars is full of retcons. So like when they wrote the original movie, I don't know if they actually had it intended for Leia to become Luke's sister, but it's like, yeah, Obi-Wan's been spent all this time protecting Luke, and it's like Leia is in a sense just as important as Luke is. So it's like if she gets kidnapped, and it really should fall to like Obi-Wan to be like the only person that.
yeah, like that part I understand, and I'm okay with. It's just that there's also the flip side of that when Obi-Wan dies in front of her, she's just kind of like, okay. And she's like the one comforting Luke who just lost his master.
Yeah, or maybe but it was interesting. I saw a meme where it's like, you see in episode 9, you see a flashback to like Leia as a Jedi, and it's like, oh, her lightsaber looks just like Obi-Wan's, and oh, now we know why she chose to name her son Ben.
I mean, yeah, but it was already pretty obvious that Ben was named after Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, and it's not like she did, like, it was established that she learned that he was, like, she met him as old Ben technically first. And that's the thing, is how she originally met him was as old Ben Kenobi, right? Until this. Um,
Yeah,
so
it was kind of confusing because again, like continuity errors, like the little recording of Leia in A New Hope's like, oh, years ago you served my father in the Clone Wars.
yeah, and again, like there was the whole lip service paid to that. It was like he said that they should pretend to not know each other, or she should pretend that she doesn't know him, and that's apparently that's how people are justifying it. But at some point, it's like no, because again, yeah, she like regardless of what age she acted, she was definitely old enough um, to be um, like in her formative years, right? She was
Yeah.
old enough to remember this very traumatic event, right? Without so that it should have affected her when she grew up, if that makes sense. Like I don't know, it just seemed like this weird cop up of an explanation rather than a real explanation.
I think like there were two scenes with Leia I really liked. I really liked the scene where they're on the Zach Braff aliens kind of truck, and those stormtroopers get on, and he has to kind of like make up a story about Leia's dead mother, and
Right.
he's
And he
like
talks
basically talking
about yeah.
Padme.
Yeah, that was great.
That was Ewan McGregor sold that scene. I'm like, that's a great scene, having the moment. And then in the final episode, when he like basically like affirms the qualities of her parents that he sees in her, I'm like, that's a good scene as well.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping that she wouldn't be there the whole time. That it's like, okay, that's like one little part of the story, is that he saves Leia and then brings her home, and then she
Yeah,
disappears.
especially like there were 6 episodes. They could have taken their time to do something more. It did feel a little bit, yeah, a little bit strange that was all of it was Leia centric.
Now, the other character people seem to really have a strong reaction to on the internet is Riva, the main Inquisitor we kind of follow throughout the show. And the actress came out, Moses Ingram came out and like showed like racist and like just not friendly
Yeah,
comments she was getting
like
on social media.
yeah, and
And
that sucks.
it's like once again Star Wars fans proving that that there is a portion of you who are not good people that are kind of like ruining the impression of everyone.
Yeah, but like also, to which extent is she not necessarily her specifically, but are people just showing the negative that's coming out and you know showing it as being representative? Like I like what you said, because some Star Wars fans, yeah, are not doing great, but it's not like it's the majority of people. Even I don't think, because like my issue with her was that like with her character, no issue with the actress. She did. I think I thought she sold it quite well, but it was just that like, given that you're doing Inquisitors that exist from other Star Wars media, why do you feel the need to add a new one in? Like I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but like why not stick, especially when you're going to be doing so many random cameos and like appearances of other Star Wars characters, or like why did you not decide to also use an Inquisitor that already existed? Like I guess if they were planning to kill her off from the beginning, I guess it doesn't make as much sense. But like you could have also just had a character that appears at some other point and then be like, oh no, this is her backstory, you know. It just, to me it just felt like it felt unnecessary to bring in an entirely new character like that.
I couldn't understand why she was so obsessed with Obi-Wan Kenobi initially.
Yeah, like they eventually wrote her character okay.
Yeah, like the big reveal that she was a youngling who happened to be there at the temple the night Darth Vader showed up and killed them all, and that she knew that what Darth Vader looked like, and that she basically was playing this long con to try and like get her revenge. That's interesting.
Yeah, like that part of her character was interesting.
But it almost felt like the show was like forcing her to like move faster on her plans. Like, you've got like what like, are you in some great rush to kill Darth Vader sooner? Like the only reason you're really forcing this because you're now within this Obi-Wan show where we have to, move things along. I couldn't understand why she was so eager to like, kill Darth Vader as quickly as possible. Like she'd clearly already been there for a while within inside the Inquisitors. And then, when she finally does get her moment to like try and kill Darth Vader, it's like she's like instantly like, nah, dog, you ain't getting anywhere near me.
Yeah, and like there were parts of that fight scene that I understand and that I think somewhat worked, but then there were other parts that just seemed just very poorly thought out.
Like her surviving a stab wound,
No, that
or her being left alive,
to some degree, yeah, her being left alive was a little strange, but like,
or her knowing to go to Tatooine because of the communicator
oh
thing.
no, that was honestly just sloppy writing. Like, you're like, oh well, we want her to show up on Tatooine and somehow, you know, be able to be in the finale, which also was kind of weird. Why was she in the finale? Like, that entire part of that episode didn't need to exist.
I mean, it was kind of cool to see Owen and Beru kind of, step up into the action a bit.
Oh yeah, no, like I'm all for Owen and Beru hillbilly protecting their farm against the Empire. But at the same time, when you look at other, like, when you look at what the show had been focusing on until then, it did seem a little strange.
I guess she is meant to be, how I kind of see it is like her character arc is meant to be a compliment to Obi-Wan's, in that she, post prequels, essentially she is on a quest for revenge, and through her experiences in this series, she's kind of at a crossroads at the end, and Obi-Wan has reached a point in his character where he can actually like help her. Like if Riva had reached that point and Obi-Wan was the same he was at the beginning of the show, he would be in no position to help her.
Yeah, but that's not mirroring. That's contriving to make something appear. Like, I understand what you mean, but I also don't think that's necessarily what was actually
I'm just trying to
there.
think of like, yeah, why was she like, why did she survive beyond like filling screen time to, have Luke.
And that's
be in
the thing,
danger.
like, and I think that's another thing that kind of made the whole issue of, the whole show being around the Leia rescue mission was also kind of that. Is that, well, we would have loved to see more. And I don't know, also, like, a lot of characters were set up that might have been interesting, but then it's just, they're only there in order to make Obi-Wan's story,
What did you think of Kunal Nanjiani as the?
I mean, uh, he kind of hits that thing that I had, which we haven't talked about yet, but that, like, I felt it was a good show, but not a great Star Wars show.
I think the idea of his character, someone who like pretends to be a Jedi, I thought that was interesting. But to me, he kind of had his like conversion very quick. Like he
Well,
went from
yeah,
being
but
like,
again, it's a character that might have been interesting, but then was just not used because this needs to be about Obi-Wan,
yeah.
and like not bad, but not great either.
I know someone I watched on YouTube almost made the case like there's an Inquisitors show kind of hidden within this Obi-Wan show.
Yeah, somewhat. Like
Like everything with the path and Reva could have easily been like a totally different story.
yeah, actually. And
Hence my
I think
idea
it
of,
worked.
making the thing just the first two in the last episode. Because that would, it wouldn't be, I'm not saying, like, you'd still have to trim stuff out to, make it make sense. So
Yeah, but but I think it would work better for the show. But I do think that what would work best would be just to have, like you said, to have have either have just that episode and make it a movie, or just make it a show, but just get rid of some of the things you had in there.
now, as we mentioned last week, the decision to include Darth Vader in the show was something that was decided in the rewrites. And they, originally had Darth Maul be a part of the show, and they decided to replace him with Darth Vader.
God knows why. I don't know. I
Uh,
feel like Darth Maul is more popular than Darth Vader.
Among Star Wars fans, I mean, like the general audience.
Yes.
Because that was another question we asked last week, like, who is this show for? Because I would say
Oh
maybe
yeah.
among Star Wars fans, Darth Maul, but there's no way in the general populace that, like, Darth
But
Vader is considered one of the
you
greatest
really don't
movie
think that
villains
Darth
of.
Maul is more popular than Darth Vader overall?
No, are you kidding me? Like, Darth Vader is like one of the most popular movie villains of all time. Like, I don't think Darth Maul is anywhere near that.
I guess.
So how did you feel about Darth Vader's inclusion in the show? Did you think there was too much of him, not enough of him?
Hard to. I think it'd be hard to say there was not enough of him. Like, there's so much of. Wow. They made him such an integral. It's a weird thing because they did make him such an integral part of the story, but then also he himself did almost nothing. Like, I think somebody was pointing at. I was listening to a podcast, and somebody pointed out how many things Hayden Christensen actually had to do, and yeah, it was almost nothing. And I think I mentioned this also last episode, that Ewan McGregor has aged better, or not necessarily aged better, but like the difference in age between him in the prequel movies and him in Obi-Wan is not as noticeable as it is for Hayden Christensen. Like, he looks, he looked like a young man, and now he looks like a full-grown man. And even in that one scene where they're dueling, it's a little like they both look too old for when the scene is set, but I felt like it was a little more jarring with him.
So, I mean,
And
okay, like, would you rather this or the Luke Skywalker and Book of Boba Fett? Because I think I would prefer this. Like, it's like, okay,
yes,
I know
I would prefer this, but I would prefer neither. Like, I don't think this was a good idea either.
So, like, you don't know why they didn't pull out some of the de-aging technology for them in that scene.
Oh, I thought they had tried, and it just wasn't good enough.
No, I don't think they did. I don't think they actually tried.
Oh, interesting.
Considering it was so quick, it didn't bother me. I was just happy to, like, see them again, kind of like in the same scene.
Yeah, and that was nice, but it also just, again, was kind of like, well, this isn't the show we thought we were getting. This is suddenly a lot more about, it is about Obi-Wan trying to deal with his past mistakes with Darth Vader, and, that's fine and fun, but, is it what I was expecting? No, not at all. And so,
What were
and
you
it's not that
expecting?
it's not to say that just because it wasn't what I was expecting, it was bad, but I do think there was a certain level of expectation that was not met.
Well, now you got me
And
curious. Like, what were you expecting from a Obi-Wan show with Darth Vader in it?
oh well, no, but that's the point. I wasn't expecting Darth Vader to be in it.
Oh, I see.
Like, I actually, until we talked about it last week, was not aware that Darth Vader was in it.
I see. Got it.
So I was just kind of like, why? So yeah, I think that's my thing for that.
I really enjoyed Obi-Wan's kind of journey through the series, and the fact that he feels so bad about what happened with Anakin.
Yeah, somewhat. It just, I've heard people say something about this, and I don't think it would be as I don't think I would go as far as saying this was character assassination, but I understand people who say it because he did kind of just give up on life, you know.
But
And
wouldn't you if you were in his situation?
well, I don't know. Master Yoda gave me something to train to be able to communicate with my old master that I haven't seen in a long time. I'm in a planet where I have a renewed purpose in protecting this young boy. Like, I don't know. I feel like he hit rock. Like, I know it's been 10 years, but like, was his mental fortitude really that weak that this is where he kind of went? If that makes sense.
I suppose. So this isn't for you. It's kind of like another of how Luke is in The Last Jedi. Kind of like, really? Like, you didn't have...
Like, not as bad, but in that, but yeah, definitely in that family of thoughts.
Right.
And like, and that's the thing, is that it also just kind of like ended up doing things that made him seem not like, it didn't just make him seem like he's out of shape or something like that. It made it seem like he had completely lost all sense of who he is and what he can do. And I think that's what I had more of a problem with.
So you didn't like the fact that that was the starting place for his character in the show, and then that his journey was basically trying to get out of that funk.
See, the thing is, I don't inherently have a problem with that journey existing. It's just that I feel like there was too much of it. Like, they started him a little too low. Like, I don't know, I feel like if it was like losing part of his connection with the Force, or not wanting to use a lightsaber, like having a mental block on actually using his weapon, that could have been something interesting, something they could have looked at. And, you know, just the shame about being a Jedi because of what's happening to people because of the Jedi, you know. And also, like, he uses a blaster for like 2.5 episodes fully, almost 3 episodes fully, and never once makes any comment about it.
So uncivilized.
Yeah, but it doesn't need to be a quip, but at some point, maybe when he restarts using the lightsaber, say something like that, or like when he you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there was a lot of things, like there were a few moments that I liked, like when he uses the Force to make the 2 stormtroopers run off to in the wrong direction. He's like, oh, I can do this still. You know, that was a nice moment. There was a little bit of that, like, I can do it. And when he holds back the breaking glass with the Force, there was a little bit of that.
You know,
But
as we're talking, I'm being reminded of Kanan Jarrus's character from Star Wars Rebels. I know I've talked about Star Wars Rebels a couple times, but very similar in the sense that he's a Jedi who survived Order 66, kind of like went into hiding, cut himself off from the Force, became like a rebel spy. And then only when he started interacting with a younger Force-sensitive character in Ezra Bridger that he kind of started to basically like reconnect with his Jedi side.
yeah, and I think something a little more subtle like that would have worked better. And also, they also go overboard in the finale where he's just like
Like,
have
he
you
seemed
watched
too
have you
powerful.
watched the Fate series?
Yes, I've seen some Fate stuff.
Okay, so basically he becomes Gilgamesh in the last episode, but with rocks instead of swords.
Yeah, okay, he did a... I
Like,
will admit, I loved the final episode, but
oh,
that
it was cool, but it also, I was like, oh, he went from I can barely use the Force to I am the most overpowered person in existence.
Yeah.
Like, it was a lot.
Okay, so going back to Darth Vader.
Yeah.
The question I keep asking myself now is, do the interactions the characters have in this show kind of make the moment where they reunite in A New Hope less meaningful.
Absolutely. I think so. Because like it also, I think we mentioned it last week, but the like whole last time we met, I was but an apprentice, or I can't remember the line. Wow, I haven't
When I
seen
left you, I was but a learner. Now I am the master.
exactly. And like I think that the show was trying to pay homage to that by having like the scene of him losing losing to Obi-Wan in a similar fashion to how he lost that duel. But like I don't know, it just felt a little like it felt a little bit like they tried like too hard to make that scene have that significance instead of make it fit with the rest of what was happening in the episode.
When they met up in the third episode, I was very much underwhelmed. I'm like, Obi-Wan's getting his butt handed to him. I did like the poetic justice of Darth Vader kind of like raking him over the fire. I was like, yeah, that's
Yeah,
some poetic justice there. But then Obi-Wan bounces back like immediately from that. Like he little swim in the back to tank and he's like ready for action. I
I
thought
mean
for
that's what
sure.
back to tanks are for, but still.
I know, but my impression was like, okay, he's like, he's just kind of gotten out of the closet of like being afraid of being a Jedi, got his butt handed to him, and then immediately he's like ready to jump into action. I thought for sure there was going to be at least part of an episode where he's like terrified to do anything, but that didn't
Yeah,
happen.
that was like quick, but again, they didn't have that much time.
Yeah.
So,
I would have much rather their only encounter have been the one we get in the final episode. Like there was the way
yeah.
they did in like I think it was the fifth episode where they almost run into each other because they're in the same place, but then they just miss each other. Like that was neat. But man, yeah, like you talk about retcons, the scene where Darth Vader says like you didn't kill Anakin, I did. I was like, that is a brilliant way of justifying the way that Obi-Wan Kenobi like chooses to explain everything to Luke in the original movies.
Yeah. That was good. And again, it's not like everything was bad in this movie. It's just there were in this TV show. It's just overall, it wasn't coherent enough, and it made some of the decisions kind of baffling.
Like the look Hayden Christensen had on his face and the little smile you could see peeking out of the mask and like the way the voice was modulating back and forth.
Yeah, that was again. It looked cool, and again, if it was in a non-Star Wars context, I feel like it would work better. Because I liked a lot of what did happen as character development. It's just that it felt a little weird for it to be coming from Obi-Wan Kenobi, specifically.
When you say Obi-Wan Kenobi, do you mean the show or do you mean the character?
The character.
Mm. Well, okay, so Darth Vader's character development. I mentioned there was like a,
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
the
That
scene,
moment.
the moment when the Imperial March finally plays. It's like the point where the Emperor's like, "Yo, you're just too hung up on Obi-Wan. Like, is this distracting you from like your mission?" And he's like, "No, Obi-Wan means nothing to me." And then that's when the Imperial March plays, and I'm like, "Okay, this is no longer just whiny Hayden Christensen Anakin in the Darth Vader suit. It's like, okay, he has now kind of like put that behind him, and now he has almost fully become the Darth Vader of the original movies."
Yeah, although that was a little bit strange to me to just having again, it wasn't fully the Hayden Christensen Anakin either, because it kind of felt almost more like Kylo Ren in some of the ways he was being whiny. I don't know, maybe that was just me, but it just felt like it was like I get that's what they were trying to go for, but there's also at some point it's been 10 years and he's really matured so little. Like I actually thought like when Obi-Wan was saying something about like him always doing the same thing, I thought there was going to be this point where Obi-Wan is like sorely disappointed because he realizes that no, actually he has evolved. He's become better than you thought he was. Um and now he's a real threat to you. But they still kind of were going for, well, he's still a little petulant and a little obsessed. And again, there's a difference between petulant and obsessed, and I think they went a little bit too much on the petulant side in some of the instances.
I don't know what the word petulant means. Could you just
Like impatient, like you usually think of like children being petulant, being like,
Right.
you know,
Gotcha.
like the typical 3-year-old,
Gotcha.
which
I
he very much was in episode 3. Like that's like Anakin was acting like a toddler.
Yeah, I really liked where Darth Vader ends here because you would think, oh, I've gotten my butt kicked again by Obi-Wan. I'm gonna go get him for sure. And even that short conversation with Palpatine, he's like, oh, in the grand scheme of our empire, and it's like that one Jedi does not matter, and he's able to kind of move past that.
Which I think is nice, but also comes in a little late.
Yeah, and again, if this was shorter,
Yeah, actually, I think you're starting to really convince me on the whole. It should have just been a shorter show rather than.
well, how much shorter can you make it before it's just a long movie?
Or yeah, shorter show / long movie, but like.
Yeah. Because honestly, the last episode gave me most of what I wanted to see. I saw Obi-Wan doing the 2-finger thing with his lightsaber.
Yeah.
I saw hello there.
Yeah. Although I did like that they kept Obi-Wan still used his original style of lightsaber fighting.
Yeah, I also loved how powerful Darth Vader is. Like again, it raises a lot of questions about the original movies, like why doesn't he do certain things? But the fact that ship's about to take off, and he's like, nope, this isn't going anywhere.
Yeah. Never have we seen such prowess of the Force except from, what's her face in.
Rey?
Yeah, except from Rey when she almost kills Chewbacca. Which, yes, I don't think anybody really believed she was going to kill Chewbacca, but maybe some people did.
What did you think about the fact that Liam Neeson makes his appearance as Qui-Gon?
I had gotten to the point where I was kind of expecting it.
They teased it up. I would have been so mad if he didn't show up at least for like a little bit. I'm like, you can't do this. You can't tease us with Qui-Gon because he keeps calling out for his master, and finally, he shows up.
I know what you mean.
And I mean, it was CG, but he looked the same.
Yeah,
I'm like,
but that wasn't actually Liam Neeson, right?
Yeah, that was Liam Neeson.
That was?
Yeah.
I thought that was just a better DHCG thing.
No, that was him.
Oh. Okay. My God, he's aged gracefully.
Yeah. I mean, he was already older, I guess, 20 years ago, and then the blue light of the ghost magic.
Yeah, like obviously the light in which they put him made that a lot easier, but
yeah. What did you think about his comments like, "Oh, I've always been here, you just couldn't see me"?
I thought that was weird, especially because once again, they specifically said that he was going to go train to be able to see him 10 years ago. Like,
it kind of felt like a little Holy Spirit-y, being like, it's the air, but you're just not aware of it, kind of thing. You're not like trying to seek it.
Okay, had not seen it that way, but I'm a fan.
Going back to the man himself. So this is Obi-Wan Kenobi's show. What I heard you say earlier is that you feel like he started too low. Are you happy with where he is at the end of the show?
Yeah, I think yeah. To be fair to the show, I think it's ended well, and I think there were good things in the middle. It just took a little long to get there.
Yeah, like I really think the scripts could have used another like run through. It's like, what are all the and again, I said this last week, like they're shooting themselves in the foot by like trying to write a story in the most crowded space in the Star Wars timeline.
Yeah, that didn't. They weren't. Yeah, like you said, they weren't doing themselves any service there.
Yeah, like they have to follow what's happened before, and they have to like there's a defined like end destination for all the characters. Like it's like, oh no, is Reva gonna kill Luke?
Yeah,
Obviously
like
not.
yeah, there were a few of those moments that were yeah. It was just like no, she's not. Luke is fine. Like, and I mean, it didn't entirely take the tension out,
No, I was engaged in the moment. It didn't distract me.
but it did retroactively take it out.
Yeah.
Like, I think that scene was well filmed, and as such, worked.
Now I'm biased. I said last week that Obi-Wan is my favorite Star Wars character, and that I loved Ewan McGregor's performance in the prequels. But I like tip my hat to that man. I think he did an amazing job.
Oh yeah, this show. I think this show would have been a lot worse if he hadn't. And even like Hayden Christensen did a good job
Oh yeah, he was great.
in returning to the to that role. Like it, I didn't like the fact that they put his character in there, but it had nothing against what he did himself.
People have compared Hayden Christensen to Andrew Garfield coming back for Spider-Man. It's not quite the same because he's in again a lot less screen time and whatnot, but it's the same kind of
Yeah,
idea.
but no, I think that's a decently fair comparison.
Like, is it fair to say that if they had, for whatever reason, chose to like cast a different actor as Obi-Wan, maybe to like make him look closer in
mean as
age to
Darth
Alec
Vader?
Guinness? No,
Oh,
like
okay.
to like say, oh, like Ewan, you're still too young to like what this character should look like now. So let's cast an old man or an older actor.
Oh, I don't know. I feel like that would have been weird. So I think Ewan McGregor is old enough at this point to do
He
it.
certainly doesn't look 9 years away from being Alec Guinness, like in terms of.
Yeah, I guess if it's no, you're right. He doesn't. But
Those years in the desert, man, they're rough on you.
yeah, I mean, God made the desert to test the faithful.
Which is crazy because I've learned recently that they finished filming Revenge of the Sith in 2003. That means that the version of Ewan McGregor we see in Revenge of the Sith, even though that was released in 2005, it's like that's what he looked like in 2003. So it's been 19 years since he last played Obi-Wan. And so it's like Ewan McGregor today compared to Ewan McGregor as seen in Revenge of the Sith, like that's 19 years of aging. And that's supposed to be the amount of time that passed between the original trilogy and the prequels. So Ewan
Yeah,
McGregor, the actor, has aged much more gracefully than Obi-Wan Kenobi has.
yeah. But I think we kind of knew that going in.
Yes, yeah. I've seen some people make jokes about like, oh, like they should just remake Episode 4 and he can play Obi-Wan again.
I mean, look, it's no longer George Lucas who's in charge of it, so I won't say don't tempt George Lucas, but don't tempt George Lucas.
But this has been marketed as a limited series, which means that it's generally for like Emmy considerations. It's not a show that has multiple seasons, but I have heard rumblings of a season 2. And so I got to ask, like, based on where it ends with Reva, with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, like, would you actually want to see any more of this?
I don't think so, no.
I think I would maybe be interested in seeing him pop up in something else. but I don't think I'd need to see more of an Obi-Wan story. Like what's left, what is unwritten of what happens in the 9 years, let it remain unwritten.
I think that's a better way of doing things because, again, like I think Star Wars had this problem when Episode 3 had to come out and had to reconcile the end of Attack of the Clones and the beginning of New Hope. And so, like, the more you try to make it fit, especially using different actors, the harder it will be to actually get there.
Would you perhaps actually? I'd like to see him show up as a Force ghost in the Ahsoka show, because that's
I could go for that.
yeah. Like there's rumors that Hayden Christensen is involved for like flashbacks and Force ghost stuff. So I'm like, well, just bring Obi-Wan along too. Like, why not have just a Force ghost party where they're all there talking to Ahsoka?
I actually think that'd be hilarious, and I would love to see it. But
maybe they'll explain why Force ghost Anakin never bothered explaining things to Kylo.
yeah, that because they don't really talk, eh?
No.
Like Kylo, but Kylo does have, I don't know.
He has visions of Darth Vader that were like kind of falsely implanted by Palpatine, as they explain in the last one.
Yeah. But even that was kind of a weird explanation for it.
So coming around now to final thoughts, we're now outside the Spoilerverse. We spent a lot of time in there today. We spoiled so many things, so many franchises. Having seen all of Obi-Wan Kenobi, I enjoyed it. I think because of my personal attachment to the character, I probably enjoyed it more than the second season of The Mandalorian, definitely more than the Book of Boba Fett. I think I might have still enjoyed the first season of The Mandalorian more on the whole, because there's more filler here that I would have liked to had it cut down. Ewan McGregor kills it, and he kind of carries the series. When he's not on screen, like the show just is not as good. And that's not a slight against the other actors. It's more so
how much he really has grown to be the role.
Yeah. So I'll give Obi-Wan Kenobi 3.4 out of 4 bat cookies.
Okay. I, not sharing your bias, I think I'll give it a 3.2. Like, it wasn't, like, there's a lot to nitpick, but like I said, and I think you kind of touched on this, it's not a bad show. It just could have been better. Like, there were a lot of easy things to do better that weren't done.
So Obi-Wan Kenobi is now on Disney Plus. All episodes available. So if you have Disney Plus, or if you want to try Disney Plus to watch this, we'd recommend it, right? That's kind of how we're ending this.
I mean, I don't know if you'd necessarily get Disney Plus specifically to check this out, but yeah, actually, we'll end it there. Yeah.
If you want to reach the show, you can send us an email at
batjarpodcast@gmail.com.
or you can tweet us at
The Bat Cookie Jar.
You can find the Bat Jar Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube, because we got a channel. Share our posts on Facebook, write reviews, give our shows a rating. This will help all people join us inside the Bat Jar, and we appreciate it dearly.
Originally, we were going to do Thor Love and Thunder this week, but just some stuff came up, so we'll be doing that next week. And then the week after that is the Scooby-Doo franchise. So
yes.
No need to go inside the Bat Jar. We got the next couple weeks covered. So come back to the Bat Jar Podcast next week when we talk about Thor Love and Thunder. And until that time, I'm Average Joe.
I'm Beef Pork Ribs.
Catch you on the flip side.
Hello there.